5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Okay, we need to review a little bit about graphing rational functions. Fortunately, you guys are extremely intelligent. You remember how to do this. Do you remember the general shape for 1 over x? What's the general shape for 1 over x? Yeah, 1 down there and then 1 up there, like that. So this one's just going to have a shift to it. What's the shift?
To the left.
Very good. So we're just going to take this and shift it left 2. And in this situation, you have one that sits below and one that sits above. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, the directions say to also identify the domain and the range. I don't care about the domain and the range, but I am going to identify the vertical asymptote and the horizontal asymptote. And you can see that the horizontal asymptote is y is equal to 0. And the vertical asymptote is x equals -2. Yep. You all good with that? Don't worry about domain and range. We'll skip that. For the next one, how is that different? Yeah, what is it? What's going to happen when you square it?
It's going to switch corners.
Yeah, they're going to be both above or both below. Or these could be both up or they could be both down. Because of the negative, that's going to create that vertical flip. So I have that shape, okay, for my asymptotes, and then they're both going to sit below. So the vertical asymptote is x equals 3. And the horizontal asymptote is y is equal to 0 still. So we're going to do something a little bit different from this, but this is to help you just have a kind of a reference for what we're going to do. I want you to do this one right now, and I want you to do this one right now. Please do those two, okay? Do those two. Yep. Okay, so for this one, you should have just shifted up 3. So x equals 0 is your horizontal or your vertical asymptote, and your horizontal asymptote should be y is equal to 3. Notice how this number on the end always ends up being that horizontal asymptote, doesn't it? And notice how wherever the vertical asymptote is, that's where the function is undefined. So what number can you not plug in for x? 0. And what number can you not plug in for x? 3. Okay? So in this situation, you can see that your vertical asymptote, by just looking at the bottom, is going to be 3. And your horizontal asymptote is going to be that portion. So we do our last one. What would you like to do first here? Up 1. So that will create our horizontal asymptote. Horizontal asymptote of y equals 1. Kenny says move right 2. So my vertical asymptote is going to be right 2. So vertical asymptote is x equals 2. Both are on the bottom. Because it is squared, they'll be adjacent to each other instead of opposite. And then the negative flips upside down. We all good with that general piece? We have covered that before, haven't we? And to just repeat what somebody said earlier to me today, they said they think They said, I think my challenge with math is that I don't remember anything. And if you don't remember anything in math, math can be a challenge, right? Because it builds on itself all the time. So hopefully for some of you, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. If you don't remember any of it, then I apologize. This is going to be a little bit confusing. We're just going to do these two examples, and then we are going to go ahead and do one problem from your worksheet, and you only have 3 problems remaining for your assignment today. So, yep, we're trying to ease up on you right here so you can get ready for this test. So this is where we're really going to need some little bit of your thinking cap here for a second. We're going to do something just a little bit different. We're going to look at our x-intercept, and we're going to look at our y-intercept. And then we're going to look at our vertical asymptote and at our horizontal asymptote. So instead of just finding the vertical and horizontal asymptote, I'd like you to be able to look at these and be able to determine the intercepts as well. So if I want to talk about intercepts, it's very important that you remember what we talked about earlier. If you have a curve or anything and it crosses through the x-axis, that's your x-intercept, and this is your y-intercept. You happen to know one of these coordinates and one of these coordinates. Which coordinate do you know, and what is it?
Y0.
Y is 0 in this situation, and then we are determining x, whereas here you have x is 0 and you're determining y. Everybody got that? Okay, so every time I teach x and y intercepts, I come back to that all the time, because if you can visualize that in your brain, you can usually figure out which one's 0, correct? So when we go back to this, if I want to identify the y-intercept, we'll start with a y-intercept. I'm going to plug 0 in for x. Remember when we made these little charts and we said, hey, if you want to find the y-intercept, plug 0 in for x. If you plug in 0 for x, you get 0 divided by 3, which is 0. So it turns out in this situation that this goes through the origin. It goes through 0, 0. I'm actually going to mark that point down right here. Okay. And so if it goes through the origin, that means that it has a y-intercept of 0 and an x-intercept of 0. Everybody okay with that? All right. So if I look at this, I can tell where it's undefined. For what value is it undefined? -3. So I'm going to have a vertical asymptote of x equals -3. Now what makes this different is that it's not in the same form that the other ones are, is it? Because this one does not have, it has an x in the top. We haven't seen that before, have we? And so what's in this form, it's tough to see the horizontal asymptote. So I'm going to show you what we do. We're going to do something that you've used earlier in this unit, and we're going to actually just divide them. I'm going to take x plus 3, I'm going to divide it into x, or x plus 0. Yep. What do you multiply x by to get x? So a 1 goes there. I multiply the 1 back through and I get x plus 3. I subtract. -3. If you remember from what we talked about earlier in this class, we said that your answer is 1. It'll be -3 over x plus 3. The remainder over the divisor. Do you remember that? Okay, once we have that, just notice that this is the same thing as -3 over x plus 3 plus 1. That looks like something you could graph, doesn't it? Doesn't that look like what we started with on the previous page? When I divided them, I was able to get this this vertical shift on the outside, this plus 1. So what is our horizontal asymptote? Y equals 1. So therefore, you know that it's going to go here. As you look at this, you see the negative out front. So is it going to be in the bottom and the top, or the top and the bottom? Top and the bottom, and you know that, not because you just had to remember it, but because it goes through the origin, doesn't it? So therefore, you have to draw it so it crosses through that point. So your only option is to draw it in the bottom. And then look at this. Does it cross the x-axis at all over here? It doesn't, so therefore it must be in the top. So see by how determining the x and y intercepts, you can then determine where it goes. We'll do one more together, and then we'll do one on your homework together. You should be good to go. Okay? For this one, I'd like you to start on your own. See if you can find the x and the y intercept. See if you can just find the x and the y. Oh, no, never mind. You're going to do that with your next one. You're going to do that with your next one. I'm sorry. We need to do this one together. Okay, I'd like to start by finding the y-intercept. What do I do to find the y-intercept? Plug in 0 for x. And if you plug in 0 for x, what do you get in the top? What do you get in the bottom? And what is 4 divided by negative 1? So the y-intercept is negative 4. So it's going to cross at negative 4. Everybody okay with that? All right, then let's look at if y is equal to 0. If y is equal to 0, I have 0 equals 4 minus x over x minus 1. This is going to be a new type of thinking for you. It's not that difficult, but I want you to think about when a fraction is equal to 0. I have this fraction and I have this fraction. One of them is equal to 0 and one is not equal to 0. Which one's equal to 0? The first one's 0 and the bottom one is undefined, right? So what this teaches us is that when the top is 0, then the whole thing is 0. When the bottom is 0, it's undefined. So if I want to know where this thing is 0, I don't care about the denominator. I just need to look at the numerator. When is the numerator equal to 0? For 4. So I plot 4. I have a vertical asymptote and I have a horizontal asymptote. Does anybody know what the vertical asymptote will be? Wherever it's undefined, so x equals 1. So it's going to go through x equals 1 right here. And then, if you want to figure out the rest of it, you're going to have to go through the division process. So we're going to divide these polynomials. I take x minus 1 and I divide it into, I'm not going to write 4 minus x, but rather negative x plus 4. Yes, you multiply x by negative 1 to get negative x. Multiply that back through, and we get a negative x plus 1. What do you get when you subtract? 3. So therefore, we have negative 1 plus 3 over what? X minus 1. Or you could write it as 3 over x minus 1 minus 1. That looks like something that we've graphed before, doesn't it? So what is my horizontal asymptote? Close. Negative 1. It's shifted down 1 unit. So the horizontal asymptote is y is equal to negative 1. Notice how your x and y intercepts give you really good indicators there. Is the first graph going to sit in the top or the bottom? The bottom, because it has to go through that point, doesn't it? The next graph, is that going to sit in the top or bottom? The top, because it has to go through that point. Take out your worksheet, and I want you to start looking at the first problem. See if you can start by working with those around you and just start by determining the x and y intercepts. Go. Yep. Okay, let's pause and see where you got so far. I say that the x-intercept is where the whole thing is equal to 0. That's where the top is equal to 0. So I came up with 4. Everybody got 4? The y-intercept, I plug in 0 for x. I get negative 4 over 2 or negative 2. So some of you are now dancing in your seat because you got it correct. Good for you. I'm going to plot 4 for the x-axis. I'm going to plot negative 2 for the y-axis. Where is it undefined? For what value is it undefined? Negative 2. So you have a vertical asymptote of x equals negative 2. Whoop. X equals negative 2 is right back here. So all I need to finish this off is to divide so I can get a horizontal asymptote. So I'm going to go through my division process. X plus 2 goes into x minus 4. Multiply by 1. And we get x plus 2. Subtract. Get negative 6. So 1 minus 6 over x plus 2. And how could I rewrite 1 minus 6 over x plus 2? Negative 6 over x plus 2 plus 1. So you can see that this is something you know how to graph. It's shifted up 1 unit. So your horizontal asymptote should be y equals 1. And remember, I'm using kind of 2 pieces to help me out. You could think of either one, but right now I can see that this is a negative. So it could be in the bottom and the top or the top and the bottom. Top and the bottom, right? However, I also have this indicator. I know it goes through an x-intercept of 4 and a y-intercept of negative 2. So you know it goes in that quadrant right there. And it doesn't cross on that side, so it must sit above. So you got those 2 pieces to really help you. You only have to do the 3 problems on the front. You can cross off the whole back. This is something we could spend 3 or 4 days on. We're just spending 1 quick day to give you just the basic summary.
So when it was on the 92.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Tomorrow, Monday, will be days for you to work on your study guide and homework. Nope. You're going to do 2, 3, and 4 on your own now.
Nothing.
You guys, just to warn you, yeah, tomorrow you do have time to work, but that study guide is not exactly the shortest study guide. So this weekend, you do want to make sure that you get it started. Make sure you get it started this weekend.